No.
What is supposed to be recent?
I haven't had a chance to look, but I mean, things are looking better than what they were saying.
Yeah. Good, good.
Thank you.
Actually, she wants you
I
to.
can't believe how everybody is sitting across the back.
In school, yeah.
Everybody fights for the back seats.
No, we don't make those.
Yeah, except Jim. He likes to sit in the front. What's going on? I am. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Town of Griswold Board of Finance to order. April 16th, 2024, 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room. First item on the agenda, roll call to order.
We have all members present.
Okay, second item on the agenda, public forum. Does anyone wish to speak? Okay, moving on to the third item, approval of minutes. A, March 19th, 2024, regular meeting minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from March 19th, 2024. Second.
Okay, first and second, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, March 28th, 2024, special meeting minutes.
Make a motion that we accept those minutes from the 28th.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Here now, we're going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. C, April 1st, 2024, special meeting minutes.
Make a motion that we accept the meeting from April 1st.
Second. The first and second, any discussion? We're now going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D, April 2nd, 2024, special meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have first and second, any discussion? We're now going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, new business, Finance Director's monthly report.
All right, I will keep it brief because we have a lot going on tonight, but revenues reported date, we're at $33,246,148.48. That's 82.22% of our budgeted revenues. Still no concerns. Right now, I'm projecting to be around 180,000 over what we had budgeted for revenue, so we'll end up using 670,000 of the budgeted surplus. Again, these are subject to change. Some collections have slowed down a little bit. They may be picking up now that springtime's coming, but really no concerns overall. Expenditures were at $32,341,644.83. That is 79.99% of budget expenditures. No major concerns. I listed things that are currently over budget. After discussion last week, I know Rob was asking about like why some of the items, he wanted to know like the cause of some of the things being over, and I have added that now to the report, so that way you know why each of these line items is over, what the cause is, and whatnot. So there's everything listed there that's currently over. Again, no concerns. Most of these will be covered within their own departments. As far as fund balance is looking, right now I'm projecting to finish right around 18.76% of the current budget. The audit's almost done, so I increased the unassigned fund balance for beginning of the year based on where we are number-wise. That's not final, but it's closer than where it was. We had less encumbrances this year, so that typically at the end of the year, if you have an encumbrance, it goes into assigned, but if it's not an encumbrance, you just have a payable, then it's included in your unassigned. So that's a reason for that change. The audit is, they were here 2 weeks ago. They did everything they needed during that week while they were here. They're still wrapping up a few things, but we seem to be in a good place audit wise. They have everything they need. Like I said, I've had some conversations back and forth, just small questions that they have. But I think we're definitely gonna have it done by June 30th. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, I'll be getting a draft. And then I can review that and we can finalize it. So we're in good shape there. Just an update on the current year. On Friday, Deb had sent me July and August reports. They look pretty good. I've been going through them. We're setting up a date for next week to get together and discuss any differences we have. But so far, they look pretty good. So I think we're gonna be in a lot better shape now going forward, it seems. So just to give you a little update there. If anyone has any questions on the report, I'll be happy to answer.
You said we're gonna be using 670,000 out of the fund balance.
Out of the 850 that we had budgeted.
Okay, so it's less than what we had budgeted.
Right.
So just for some clarification with regard to that 670.
Yep.
The total number was 850.
Correct.
Because 250, we were over our fund balance by policy. So we earmarked an additional 250,000 towards capital to be utilized by capital to then be reeled back this year. So,
Yeah.
so truly it's the 600 number that we need to really, kind of look at.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
There's one other question. I just said there's quite a few overages on, like, just a couple of things like custodial supplies and stuff like that. I guess you explained what it was. I guess my question is, with all these, you tell us what it is, but I guess individually wise, was it misbudgeted or what was?
No, with the maintenance supplies one, the main driver on that was our preventive maintenance contract went up for the HVAC system. And we got a new preventive maintenance contract on the overhead door that goes between the tax office and the hallway. And now it's just because we've been having so many problems with it, because we've never had a maintenance contract.
Senior set over by 12,978.
Which one was that?
No, Congress, 5101G 4102 senior center. Oh, okay, that was because of.
Yeah, pay out of PTO time.
Gary, you all set?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item B, discussion and possible action on funding repairs to Bristol Volunteer Fire Department, our 455 rescue truck. Chief Halawadi?
Evening, everyone. I'm not coming with good news this year. We've had problems in the past and we really had a bad year. We had to put our rescue out of service for about a month and a half to get repair work done to it. It started with an exhaust system and a slow leak from our pump on to operate at a fire. And it turned into needing brakes and getting parts. The truck is 22 years old and it has been band-aided this time to get us by. We will need to be talking down the road as far as replacement of that vehicle because the frame rails are actually rotting on the truck. Again, it's a 22-year-old truck. 20 years ago, who knew that they were gonna put the salts and everything that they put on the road to break these trucks up? And it's actually flaking apart. What we did was we fixed the brake system on it. We fixed the exhaust system on it. We had to buy pump parts for it. And that was enough so we could get it back to make it roadworthy and available for the citizens of the town of Griswold, because that carries our rescue equipment. We were praying that we didn't get a car accident in that month and a half. Thank God we didn't, where we would have needed that equipment. We would have had to call mutual aid. But at the bottom line, our budget took a hit earlier this year because I had to spend $18,000 to replace a boiler in the firehouse. So already I'm behind the 8 ball, $18,000. Then the bill from the Corvell's Garage for the repair of the rescue was $25,184.95. And again, it was Band-Aided in, just enough so we could get the truck back. And then we have to make a decision. It'll last us about at least another few years. But we could actually put frame rails under it. We could put another 75,000 into that truck without a problem to bring it up where it should be. But again, it's a 22-year-old truck. We're looking right now, our budget doesn't have enough money to pay for this $25,000 bill. So I'm coming to the board. I put stuff that needs to be fixed at the firehouse on hold because I knew this bill was gonna be huge. We have to get doors fixed. That's another $2,000. I've got a couple of sets of turnout gear that's coming in. That's a couple thousand a piece. So I'm looking at still some bills that I have to pay. But if the board can help us out with this $25,000 bill, I'd really appreciate it.
How much does a new truck cost?
Depends on what we do. I talked to one manufacturer who says, and this is quote from him, we don't write trucks under 7 figures. Now, he did give us an option that we could look at, and it's gonna cost us about 500,000, maybe between 500,000 and 600,000, and that is take the body that's on the truck we have now and basically put it on a new cab and chassis. And like he said, by the time you're all done with everything, upgrading what you need to upgrade, it's gonna cost you between $500,000 and $600,000. But at that point, you end up with a truck that's good for 20 to 25 years because it's brand new. We had the oils checked on this because we weren't sure where it was going. If the oils would have shown a lot of wear on the vehicle, I'd be asking you for something else right now. But what we're thinking is, and this is something that the members of the fire department are looking at right now, is the next truck that needs to be replaced isn't gonna be due for another 2 to 3 years. Maybe prolonging that, but that's only kicking the can down the road. And it was not something that we would have seen until it's too late.
So chief, it's a 21-year-old vehicle, 27,000 miles. Normally, people would say that's a barn find, throw some antique plates on that and
Absolutely.
drive that baby down the road. I mean, that's got nothing for miles.
Correct. Most fire trucks are like that.
Are the problems because it sits more than it's driven? Does that contribute? I mean, obviously you talked about the weather, you talked about the salt on the road, but are some of the problems the exhaust, like some of this, is a lot of because it's not being utilized because 27,000 miles over 21 years
That's part of it.
is nothing. So, and I don't want to go down completely down a different rabbit hole, but you talk about the rot and whatnot. Between the two fire departments, do you guys invest in some sort of maintenance for undercoating on these vehicles
We haven't been.
to prepare for the bad weather? I mean, it's no mystery that over the last 10 to 15 years, what they've been putting down on the roads is destructive on your vehicles. I take my vehicle to make sure it's done so that, you know, it lasts. It just seems that if we're spending, you know, $1 million on a fire truck and we know that this has been a kind of a known issue, and I'm not, you know, pointing fingers at you, I'm just kind of the bleeding obvious here. I mean, we spend $1 million on a fire truck. This can't be the first one that the frame has rotted out on. It's probably not the second one or the third one. You know, and this technology has been around for a while. To spend, you know, I don't know, $1,000 or $5,000 to have those things undercoated so that it lasts, you don't have that issue, seems like, you know, a bargain comparatively.
New trucks today are being built with more with stainless steel, with galvanized metals. 20 years ago, they didn't.
Okay.
Now you're putting in undercoating. When we built the last truck in Griswold, ET 155, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that's exactly what we did. We made sure it was stainless steel. It was galvanized metals. That's the stuff that we need to make sure we do. Because again, 20 years ago, you didn't have the salt treatment that you have on the roads today. This truck in particular is the truck that goes out for car accidents.
Right.
When do we have car accidents? In the middle of winter on 395. That truck is on 395. It's on the state highways where they use all that chemical now, we'll just call it that.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Gary?
what were you able to do with when it was out of commission? You said a month it was out?
It was out for a month. We have recently bought, over the last couple of years, we bought some hydraulic tools that were battery operated. We have a ram and we have a combi, what we call a combi tool, which is a cutter and a spreader. That is put on our service truck, just in case we need something. That was available if we needed it for a call. At that point, I also told dispatch, and all the officers knew, that if we got a call that needed extrication, immediately start either Jewett City Fire or Town Fire. That was our backup.
Both departments have a same vehicle,
Yes, they have similar.
so Jewett City took over when you guys were out of commission, or Lisbon?
We never used them. We didn't get an incident that we needed that truck. Since that truck's come back, it's been wanting multiple
I
calls.
guess my question is, I don't know how many calls both departments do. Do we need both vehicles in the same town?
We run a rescue vehicle where Jewett City's rescue equipment actually is on an engine tanker. So they actually bring, it's a different truck that they bring. They bring it with more water, a bigger pump, where we don't have that on this truck. So they can it serves two purposes, that truck that they have, because it can go to fires and it can go to car accidents. Where the one we have is strictly for car accidents.
Do they?
And
So Jewett City does more than what you guys do with yours? Is that what you're saying?
we do the same. It's just the way that what their truck is geared up for is a little different than what ours is.
Chief, if we were to be able to come up with money for this repair, what's the likelihood that, based on you talking about some frame rot, that vehicle is gonna be tagged as out of service because it's not safe?
Before Corbell's Garage would return it to us, I told them they had to make sure that thing was roadworthy. And then you had to give me a time frame. And he's telling me right now, he said, without going and actually scraping everything off and grinding it all down, he said that truck, you should be able to get 3 to 4 years out of that.
Okay.
So I'm holding them to that. Otherwise, we're looking at another, 75, at least another 75,000 to replace the frame rails on the truck. And it's not covered under warranty or insurance, because that's just normal wear and tear.
Chief, when you order a new ET to replace this, what is the life expectancy of that truck when you purchase that truck?
Now they're talking 25 to 30 years is in typical new trucks now.
Typical new truck, so this truck is at.
And I'm gonna turn,
life expectancy.
I'm gonna turn and ask Chief D'Amico. He just got a new truck. What is your new truck?
Well, 20 years is good, because, you want me to get 35 for my ladder, right? That's what they're telling me.
Well, I'm just asking
20
you,
years is
I'm
average.
asking you guys, because you guys, this is your truck, you're the expert on this. What is the life expectancy roughly, in your opinion? Not how long we want it to last. I want it to last forever if we could, but it's not gonna happen.
Right.
So your truck is at the end of its life expectancy right now.
Absolutely.
So if we got
were
4
at
more
one-
years out of it, we'd be lucky.
At one time, the town was replacing apparatus every 20 years. We seen now that we're on the lease purchase, that life expectancy of these vehicles is getting longer. We have our ET3, which is our tanker, that's a 1997. That's the next truck that should be replaced. That's 26 years old now. So we should be looking at replacing that truck. This rescue, I think, is gonna take a little bit more of a front burner, if you wanna call it that, to ET3, yet ET3 is gonna be an older truck. Before we make that absolute decision, I'm actually gonna have the mechanic come up, look at both trucks and tell me which one's gonna be the worst one. We're gonna do the best we can for the town, but we're talking about the age of these vehicles. yes, it could be cleaned better, but you can't get underneath with a hose every time. If we had something like, and I know it was proposed some time ago to do a wash station here in the town, if we had a wash station we could drive the truck into, that would get some of the stuff underneath where it wouldn't build up and stay there. It's an unfortunate situation that we are in right now.
The bill on this is a little over 25,000. 184.95.
Correct.
Eric?
How did I know that was coming?
What do we have?
Where are we gonna get the money?
Yeah, what do we have in that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm assuming that that's not covered under ARPA.
It could if you want to go through the process, but what my suggestion would be is, because we have other plans possibly with the ARPA. My suggestion, take it out of the capital non-recurring fund, the unassigned. We have about 115,000 in there now. We probably could use the exchange account and transfer, but I would suggest taking it out of there. And as we get toward the end of the year, if we don't use all the money in the exchange account, you guys can transfer up to 20,000 back into capital non-recurring and kind of replenish most of it. That's what I would suggest.
How much is in capital non-recurring right now?
There's about 115,000.
And in the exchange?
Right now, there's probably around 50. After some of the transfers.
And are both of them accounts that roll over, or do they go back
No,
into?
the contingency does not.
Okay,
That would go back into
Okay.
surplus.
Are there any other surprises that we're not aware of that we may be limping along to try to get to year end?
I don't know, that's why I'm suggesting going this route, where take it out of capital non-recurring, and then if we are good with our exchange account, transfer up to 20,000 back in.
I agree, because you're gonna need the exchange account for some of these overages as we go forward.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Would anybody like to take any action in the form of a
I
motion?
make a motion to take 25,184.95 out of the capital non-recurring account.
Second. And that's for the GVFDR for rescue truck repairs.
455.
Yes.
I'm sorry. R455.
Did you second it?
I seconded it.
Okay, so we have a first and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
that's with the idea that the frame is good, right?
Correct. Okay. They would not have released the truck to us if the frame was to the point where it would not be roadworthy.
Okay.
So you have the truck now, you've been
Yes, we do.
utilizing, you just need to
We
pay
have
the
been
bill.
using it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, discussion of possible action on setting remaining budget season dates.
Mr. Chairman, I reached out to the registrar's, town clerk, and first selectman about a referendum date of
Okay.
June 4th. That way we can get the tax bills out on time. And everyone can make that work. So that's what we're looking at for a possible referendum date. So if we work our way back, the town meeting would have to be somewhere between May 21st and the following week. It has to be 7 to 14 days before the referendum. But that's a date that will be set by the Board of Selectmen. They're the ones that run that meeting. So I will work with them if the referendum date's okay with you, and that would mean public hearing date possibly of April 30th to give us enough time to get everything in the paper for the town meeting. And then possibly you guys, I don't know if you are available, what availability is around May 2nd. The 30th is a Tuesday, so I was thinking maybe meet on Thursday to finalize. I don't know if that works with everybody.
What was the date again?
To finalize budget would be May 2nd.
And that's-
Public hearing on 4:30, which is a Tuesday. Finalize the budget on Thursday, May 2nd. And that would go to the Board of Selectmen to set a town meeting. And I'm hoping around the 21st, 22nd, I gotta check with them and see what their availability is. And then referendum on June 4th, which is a Tuesday.
Everyone good with those dates?
Yeah.
Okay, so then to build on that, we are gonna be working on trying to craft a closer budget for public hearing this evening. I do have, we have two members that are unavailable on Thursday. So I would like to cancel our meeting on Thursday, the 18th. We do have another meeting set up already on the 25th. I don't know what everybody feels, if between tonight and the 25th, we can have, doesn't have to be a final budget, obviously, because it's just something that we're trying to craft. It's gonna be a little bit closer to the real thing when we go to public hearing, but it doesn't have to be the final budget. I mean, I'm hopeful that between tonight and Thursday, we could get that done. I don't know what anyone else thinks, and if you'd like to add another meeting date in there.
April 23rd, 5th is a Thursday.
Yes.
I agree, that sounds positive, because May 2nd, finalizing, there's a little bit of time there too.
Matt, what do you think? Between tonight and the 25th, do you think that's enough to go to public hearing?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
I know we got an idea where we want to be and
Sure.
we talked about it a little, so.
and technically, it doesn't have to be finalized until we meet on the 2nd is when we'll really finalize it, so that way it can
Right.
get forwarded to town meeting.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Rob?
I think,
Okay, Tom?
yeah,
Gary? And Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. So we covered
Do you
that.
need do you need a motion?
Do we need a motion on it?
Okay.
We'll move on to item 5, old business update and discussion on bonding projects.
So the sewer is the contract is signed with a contractor. That's gonna be started. You'll see work starting on that in the near future. We haven't got the permit back from DOT, but they'll probably start doing some things out of the roadway in the near future. For the water, we are getting ready the engineers are getting a bid ready to go out for the water line. And they expect that to go out to bid sometime next month. And they're trying to hurry that up so we can get both lines in the ground this construction season. So things are progressing. You'll start to see action pretty soon, I would assume.
How about senior center?
Senior center, we just paid the final bill, so I'm gonna talk to USDA and getting the final
Reimbursement.
reimbursement.
And that's just 164. Is there something still in the works maybe for 201? Is 201 dead at this point?
At this point, it's on hold, yeah.
It is on hold, okay. Okay, 5B, discussion and possible action on fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a comment.
Sure.
I just want to say that I know we have some new members, and we have several people from the community. And this is probably the next couple of meetings are the most difficult meetings for this commission. We're doing our very best. And we also want to say that we value and respect everyone's services they provide to the town of Griswold, everyone's who works so hard for the town of Griswold. And we are just trying to prioritize the money that needs to be spent. We know that we need to spend more than we have, but we also have to value and respect the taxpayers and the fact that they're all struggling as well with paying their taxes. So I just want to say that as we have a new team up here and we appreciate the team that's attending, that we will just do our best to work this out together. But we do respect and value you all, and I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Before you start, can I update you on a couple of items?
Absolutely.
In the Public Works Department, 3201, we just hired a new gentleman, so I updated the health insurance for the plan that he is gonna be on. So the new number for 5145 is gonna be 220,535.
What was that, 51?
5145, the health insurance.
What's the new number?
220535. And the new number for FICA, the line right below it, 5150, is gonna be 42116.
When does that start?
That, well, this is for July's budget.
And when does the person start?
He starts in 2 weeks. Also, I got a copy of the contract for the borough tax collection reimbursement that's listed in the revenues. I budgeted an estimate of 16,000, and now that number is gonna be $16,034. So 34 more in income. Then I have one more change, and that is in the town clerk department. Town clerk's been going back and forth. She was gonna retire at the end of this fiscal year. Now she's thinking she may stay. She's on the fence, so I'm gonna recommend for 5115 longevity, just to put $1 in there for a placeholder. So if she stays, we'll have to transfer her longevity into there. But I just want to leave it open just in case she ends up staying on. She was talking about possibly staying on through the election, so another new town clerk doesn't have to come in and deal with the primary and the election. So just out of precaution, I figure put $1 in there, just in case. And that's all I got. So I gave you a head start at $24,751. I don't think it's enough, but it's a start.
I'm sorry.
So obviously we'll need a motion to do a transfer in 5115 when we get to that point.
If that.
If we do that, yeah. tend to not offer up very many opinions. I'll ask a lot of questions, but I tend to not offer up any opinions throughout the course of the year at these meetings so that I don't sway the board or misrepresent things. Budget time is the only time that you will likely ever hear me offer my opinion. And I do that for kind of a couple of reasons. One is that I think it's important that people we work for understand thought process. And I also think it's just fair that I share my opinions with you on this because this is a pretty big undertaking. This is not meant to sway anybody's opinion or anybody's thoughts. It is merely just so we can start the discussion process, because one of the other things I found is that before I started to do that, a lot of times we kind of sit here and nobody wanted to be, you know, the bad guy, I guess, so to speak, right out of the cuff. So I guess I'll start and say, I've been on the board, I think this might be like, I don't know, my 13th year or something. And this is probably the most difficult budget that I think that I've ever faced or we've ever faced as a board. We came into this budget cycle really, I think, with the cards stacked against us. And I think that there's no easy decisions. And I think that there's no easy way out from the predicament that we're in. You know, your choices are to cut services across the board to the point where we go back, you know, 10 years or longer, or have to burden the taxpayer with an increase. And there's not very much of a happy medium. There aren't very many places to cut. And I'll share my thoughts with you on this, and I'm going to be the first person perhaps that's very unpopular. And I would hope that everybody can understand this is just part of the process, and don't get upset by my thoughts. These are just my thoughts. This is my opinion. Somehow you got to figure out how to make it work, and there's only so much money to go around. So I will just jump into it. On the general government side, 1201 selectmen, 5120N grant writer, I would reduce that from $5,000 down to $0. In 1201 selectmen, 5215, health and safety committee, I would take that 1,000 out and I would reduce that down to $0.
What was the first one, please? What line item?
It's 1201 5120N grant writer. Under 2201 emergency services, 5517 retention AA Young. I reduced that number by 15,000. 5301 Parks and Rec, line 5105F, assistant to the director. I would fund that back to a part-time position. (5202) their planning and development, 5202L. Economic Development Commission, I think that they look for a $2,000 increase from the $3,000 they had. I think I would reduce that by $2,000. So it would remain flat at 3,000. 1303 assessor, 5125 elected officials, Board of Assessment Appeals. I would reduce that by 3,000 back to a $0 line item. And I'm happy to kind of explain my opinions if anybody here wants to know my thought process. But moving on to capital. Under 8501 capital expenditures, I'd reduce that budget by 140,000. Moving on to Board of Education, I'd reduce that budget by 415,000. And how I came up with kind of where I'm sitting at is this. We start this budget cycle off this year with an automatic tax increase. If you account for, that's before we consider the general government budget. That's before we consider the capital budget. That's before we consider the Board of Education budget. We borrowed $600,000 last year. We're paying the full boat now on the multi-purpose field, which was about 404,000. So that's about $1,004,000. That equates to 1.1 mils. So right out of the gate, before we start looking at any budgets, that's a 1.1 mil increase we've got to do just to balance the books on our obligated long-term debt and to adjust for the fact that we borrowed from last year. So Eric gave us this chart. And I looked at it and I said, where do I think we should land? Trying to figure out what that balance is now, knowing that that would already be a 1.1 mil increase. And I landed somewhere around that 1.75, 1.6 area. So if you add up my cuts, those come out to be about, well, I thought I had it written down here somewhere. I guess in my being prepared, I don't have it, but that comes out to be us landing somewhere around, I think 1.7 or 1.75 in that range. Eric, were you doing the math while I was talking?
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
1.72 right now with the adjustments I had said.
So,
and yours. You had, your cuts would be $618,040.
okay, so that would put us at 1.72. If you account for the fact that we automatically have an increase of 1.1, that's a 0.61 mil increase. Historically, we land somewhere between 0.5 and 0.7 when we balance these budgets. There's no easy way to move forward. The taxpayers voted for the field. We've obligated to pay that debt. We're obligated to make it right for the money that we borrowed last year. On top of that, we've got to figure out how to fund all of these other budgets. So the unfortunate part is I think that's where we go. If it gets voted down, I don't know, buckle up, strap yourself in with a 5-point harness, because it's going to be one heck of a ride at that point, because I don't know how we're going to move on from there. But I think this is, in my opinion, I think this is a realistic starting point. I'm not happy about it. I don't, like I've said before, I don't like paying taxes and I don't want my taxes to go up, but it is what it is. I don't know how to do it any other way. So that's all that's kind of my piece. So I'll yield to whoever wants to begin.
The grant writer that you had mentioned, was that a new position or?
No,
All right.
no,
so
it was a position that wasn't filled, it was funded, but wasn't
It
filled.
wasn't filled, so there's no result on what it could have made because we didn't hire anybody.
And we haven't hired anybody. I think we used it a number of years ago, but hadn't been used since then.
Eric,
Yeah.
last year, the car revenue was a big part, and you said that the state changed that. The way we collect car tax
It's gonna change in the upcoming year, I believe.
to worse or better?
No one knows really.
It's gonna change.
But our motor vehicles this year went down.
Yeah, I know, you said that.
But next year, they're gonna start, basically starting with a MSRP and depreciating over 20 years, so. Don't know. No one really knows until they start and see. Because right now, what they do is they use like the NADA book and get the values, but now they're just starting at what the suggested retail price is and depreciating it over 20 years. And that's supposed to go into effect in October, but it was supposed to go in last year, I think, but they delayed it. But I don't know how that's gonna affect us. We won't know until the budget gets in place.
Fund balance use, does this projected include the $670,000 that we're gonna take out?
Well, it's all accounted for in there with the ending, projected ending, yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to give some of the newer members an opportunity, but I can go next if they're still looking at the numbers. I was targeting 1.25 mil increase. So I was targeting some bigger cuts than you were in my notes. I agree with several of the items that you indicated, and I had a couple others. I do have a question concerning capital for Eric. The capital has, I know that the capital committee works really hard to try to balance what they do, but we do still have the ability to cut one or two certain things if we wanted to, correct?
Technically, you have line item control.
Okay, all right. So on the capital, I did see that you, Scott, that you were cutting, or recommending the cuts of 140. I'd like to make the motion that we cut the which line item is the those laptops? So 130 for the laptops, Eric, help me out.
5725A.
That's the one that I would, my motion is to cut that item entirely.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
What's the value?
132,000.
132.
132,500.
Thank you.
And my, just to explain for people who didn't hear me explain my concern a couple of meetings ago, these are really teaching aids now. They essentially replace what we had, many of us 30 or 40 years ago, as books. I think that books were always in the Board of Ed budget, not in the capital budget. I do think that policy-wise, the Board of Finance needs to tighten up their definition of what goes in the capital improvements budget and what doesn't. But I do think that this is not appropriate for the capital improvements budget because it's essentially supplies.
I'm gonna second the motion, and we're gonna have a little discussion on that too.
Yeah, we'll go into discussion now.
In previous meetings, I asked about that myself, and Sean explained, and I said my point of view, which I think they're very important as well. They're essential now in our new age of technology. It's nothing I would like to take out of the budget, but like I said, it was where in the budget I think it should be. That was my opinion on the last meeting. I'm not saying they're not necessary, I'm just saying how it's gonna be put in the budget.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a word about that. I think that's the wrong move to make. At this particular juncture, because I believe if they're gonna do a line item from the capital expenditure, that there are other areas that we could remove from. And to, just because we don't have a stringent policy at this particular point for what is going into, what can be taken out of capital expenditures. And I understand there's gonna be cuts, but to right off the rip penalize something that was put into capital expenditures that fit the definition of capital expenditures at the time, because it's thought that it can go somewhere else, is not the right move at this point. But that's just my thought process.
Any other discussion on this motion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify that we do have line item control on the capital improvement
Mhm.
budget and and each time that we are going to change anything, if we are going to change anything, we do have to do it by way of motion. But certainly, certainly the Board of Ed, they could put that back into their budget as supplies or teaching aids that are very valuable and very appropriate, but I just don't think that they're appropriate in the capital improvements budget, especially when we just heard from the two fire departments about true capital improvements expenses that are going to be coming up in the next coming years. And so that's why I made that motion.
I understand where you're coming from. But in regards to that, you're already asking the Board of Education to reduce their budget. And by putting this back on them, you're asking them to reduce their budget to absorb that 132,000, when I see in here that 75,000 for the Griswold Volunteer Fire Department garage apron can wait, as opposed to Chromebooks for the children of our community. I see that there's other areas that we can make cuts in that area, as opposed to doing that and then being a more burden this time around on the Board of Education. Because they're already gonna be asked to reduce their budget, I believe, by about $400,000.
Well, that
That would be
motion,
$500,000. And their budget is already skimmed. That's my point of view.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, we haven't voted on that Board of Ed budget cut yet. So that cut hasn't happened yet.
Does anyone else have any other items, any other discussion regarding this motion? I hear you, you've made your point very well known. Gail, you've made your point very, very
Right.
well known. I don't want to make this an evening-long
Right.
debate. I think you guys have both been able to state your case. If you have something different to offer on that, then I'm more than willing to give you an opportunity, but I just don't want to go down the same
No,
route.
just a question. Because
Sure.
I was under the impression we were making suggestions at this particular point instead of motions.
So the only way that we're able to craft a budget to then present is through official action, motions and votes.
So
and
we don't
whatnot.
go through and kind of work things out and then make a motion or we do it bit by bit?
We do it bit by bit, just like we're doing it, yeah, just like we're kind of doing it right now. If you would like to, after this vote, if you would like to take a moment and have the floor and give your opinion on where you think things should be cut, you can do that as well. But yes, typically it goes line by line, somebody finds something and the motion, there's discussion on that. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're going to vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Mark, how did you vote?
Aye.
You voted aye? Okay, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
You can.
I'd like to thank Mr. McKenna for bringing in this paper. I just have a question. On the budget proposal, you mentioned that you have a curriculum director. There's no curriculum director listed on this.
No, there's the curriculum director, it's the assistant superintendent. So
Okay,
there's no
then what
place-
is the teaching, learning, and invocation coordinator?
I apologize for that. The teaching, learning, and innovation coordinators, they were 3 people that were in the buildings that we redeployed to central office.
What do they do?
They help with testing, they help with curriculum, they help with coaching, they help with a number of unfunded mandates by the state, including increasing diversity education program, including the new kindergarten requirements, including the new reading waiver, among many
So are they
others.
included in the budget proposal?
What's that?
They're in the budget?
They're not in the budget because we fund 2 of them, correct me if I'm wrong, in title, they're actually funded in the title grant, Title 3, and Title 2.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Gail?
it was mentioned a few minutes ago about the apron. Could we inquire how urgent it is to
Absolutely.
create that apron?
Real quick, before you guys go that route, if you guys have the updated capital one, apron's not on it.
Yeah, the apron was taken out with the cuts that the Board of
Oh,
Selectmen had asked for.
oh, okay.
Yeah, big-
I think that's the one. I believe is what was identified as always blue. Revised draft H1.
We just,
You're looking at,
Should have an updated page in your book.
you're looking at the big one, Gail? That's-
Yeah.
That's the 20-year plan, 1 year.
okay, that's not the one.
Revised draft H1, Jim?
Revised draft H1. Yep, got it.
Thank you, Matt.
And if you look at that gray line column, we took that out of there.
I see that. And the youth center definitely needs a new roof this year.
I don't think it's on this year, is it?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I think I'd defer that question to Todd if he's allowed to answer it.
Youth center roof needs to be replaced this year.
Yeah, we're missing about 12 to 15 shingle tabs on the front, so.
Mr. Chairman, with the cuts that you have and that you have listed in next year's budget, are we thinking of using any fund balance?
My personal opinion would be no. I think that using fund balance got us into this problem.
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's just, that's my opinion, but look, I'm only here to break or create ties. That's it in this process.
And our cap is 19%.
Yeah.
And we'll be at 18.79.
Roughly, that's a projection.
Without anything else happening.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
we have 1,179,000 on the road construction plan, which is, less than last year, but that last year included the extra 250,000, correct?
Eric, this proposal does not include that 250, right? That was already taken out.
Yeah, that was last year.
So that's
The
not,
original budget for roads last year was 1 million, and then you added the 250.
so the number we see in FY 23-24, 1,250, that includes the 250 that we added in.
Yep.
Will that all be used this year?
I wanted to inquire, Mr. Chairman, about, of the road superintendent, if he was cut somewhere between 50 and 100,000, what's, is that a cut that he could do workarounds with, or would that cripple him?
Does that bring us down to for a total?
It would bring you down to, say, 1,100,000.
Yeah, last year we got an infusion of the extra 250. So now you start cutting, you're actually losing ground again. You know, the way we've been funding it for 15 years hasn't been the ways that they suggested. I think we're finally getting somewhere in the area where they first suggested of 1 million. You know, but that was 10 years ago, probably. So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't kill us. You know, we gotta offer something up, I guess, and I think everybody has to be here for this process.
Kenny?
Go ahead.
Question for whoever can answer. The 55,000 for the van youth center, is that van in bad shape and has to be replaced? And I don't want to kick the can down the road, but cuts are gonna come from somewhere, and I'd like to make sure they come from the places that maybe could wait a little longer. I don't know. There's nobody here really to speak.
Well,
Jim and Tina, I'll let the two of you speak to that.
I think Tina has probably a better handle on it because they were talking about swapping vehicles and that did not work out.
It did not work out.
It's pretty, I think it's fairly critical.
yeah, last year.
Gary? Tina, if you can.
I guess I have a different opinion on it. I'm not I really wasn't sure what the use of a new van would be for. Is in light of transporting students, you have to be certified for that. It's not something that can just happen. I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it, and I don't know the condition of the current van that they're using now. I mean, Todd, can you speak to that? You do the maintenance on it.
Well, it was the old dog warden van that we repurposed. It was formerly an ambulance, so it had mileage on it. We've done some repairs to it and been able to move economically to keep it running. But I'm not sure in a year, it's an older vehicle, it's only 18 to 20 years old.
So if,
That's really going down further you go.
if they can't transport, what do they use that vehicle for?
This one he uses to transport things from the public works garage storage shed to schools, from the shed and the youth center to the schools, basketball programs, I'm assuming it's those kind of programs, where he, that capital.
Okay.
But they don't have anyone certified to transport students, people?
I don't believe so. Because I know that when we were talking about transferring the blue van down there, that was the one thing that the senior center driver raised the point. You know, we have to have some type of endorsement,
Maybe driving.
public service, yeah.
He could have asked him for 2 years. He said that if it breaks down, he'll be using his own vehicle to transport the things back and forth. In last year's budget, we were told that what was gonna happen was gonna be the transfer of the vehicle. And then I didn't find out until later on the capital improvement that never happened. And we were under assumption that it did happen. He's been asking for this for, more than 2 years now, I think, and it's in pretty bad shape from what I hear, what I'm told. And if it goes down, then he's not using his own personal vehicle.
Another question, probably a three-part question for the chief. You guys got a truck here with the cap and utility bed for GBFD. On the other page, it's listed on the fire marshal. You guys have 2 other trucks, are those non-viable?
The truck that you're referring to should be for the fire marshal's office. The Expedition that we have now is falling apart. It's a 1999 vehicle that they, when they got it, it was used. It was from American Ambulance. It was their fly car for the paramedic service. The fire department was graciously used it for a while until we got our new pickup truck. Now it's given back to the fire marshal's office, and there's one strap holding the gas tank together, and the floorboards are starting to rot away.
Okay.
Chairman, if I may,
Rob?
and what is that vehicle used for? 'Cause I haven't seen it at scenes.
That Expedition is used for inspection processes and any fire-related issues that go on. Right now, I am. Look at it, sitting right outside.
We know we have a lot of needs. We know.
Just that's because I see the fire marshal respond in his own vehicle to situations. That's the only reason I was asking.
On the capital improvements budget, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to reduce the road construction plan by $30,000.
It's got a line item here, I know it does.
5710.
I'll second it.
30,000?
Yeah, the road manager was, I understand his, I was thinking originally of about $80,000, but he's right. We started last year and we should continue to try to keep the forward motion on our road repair.
We have a first and a second on cutting $30,000 from General Road and Bridge Projects 5710 V Victor. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, we're gonna vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Gary, you were an aye, you were, okay, Mark, you were an aye.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Is it about something that we have already asked you a question on?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, getting back to, and thank you. Getting back to the youth center van, I realized the need for the van, but what was the amount proposed in the budget? 55,000? What if there was a reduction? I know that the new van, and I think Eric, I'm looking at it now, the new van that the senior center purchased this year was 34,800. So could there be some compromise with the amount requested?
I'm not sure how the quote was given to the capital improvement.
I'm not sure at this point either. We've been carrying it, like you said, for quite some time.
He had given a quote for a Ford Transit, I believe it is.
Is that the equivalent vehicle of what the senior center bought for 33,000 or whatever it was?
They got a Ford Transit wagon.
A Ford Transit Connect wagon, and it has 3 rows of seating. And
Big difference in the state bid. I don't know if those.
But the senior center is for transportation of people.
yes,
The youth center is for transportation of things.
it could be for both. If he decided to only use the first 2 rows, if somebody were to become certified.
That would
And,
cost money.
Huh?
You'd have to get certified by class.
yeah. And, you know, maybe that's his intention, and, but I'm just saying, you know, if rather than cut it completely, if there were to be a reduction, would their van qualify under state bid, the youth center? Yeah, because this state bid was 34,848.
I don't know what the criteria that he needs this for. I just know that he's been asking for it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like from what Tina was saying, that this van that they bought for $34,000 sounds like it probably would be suitable for.
You know, if they were gonna take what you had, it was gonna be what you had.
Same thing,
Then
same thing. What we have now is what we had in the blue van.
The difference with this one is, for what he's doing, I think it's better because the rear door is open this way instead of the hatch. And the second, third row seats come out. So you could go from the back doors all the way to the back of the front seats if you wanted to.
Mr. Chairman, based on the comments from the from the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to make a motion that the youth center ban be reduced from 55,300 to 35,300.
What's the number on that, Eric?
20,000, right? 55.
No, the,
300.
no, we have
Oh,
a
the
capital,
line item?
yeah.
5725 high,
thank you.
sorry.
Okay, do we have any discussion? We're gonna vote, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Jim,
Right.
quick question for Eric. Do you have a running tally as we're cutting this capital?
I
Where we
do.
are right now, please?
For capital,
Yes.
the total for capital right now is 1,746,813.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on Board of Selectmen budget, item 5120, N as in Nancy, the grant writer, to reduce that from 5,000 to 0.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Favor,
Aye.
any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, also under Board of Selectmen, item 5215, Health and Safety Committee. I'd like to reduce that from 1,000 to 0.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman, I have a question. Item, line 5407, under the Selectmen's budget, technology maintenance. It's gone up quite a bit over the last few years. Is that 40,000 a real number? Can we get it down
I don't
to?
think so. Because we have more things in place for cybersecurity now. And that all runs through our IT consultant.
So we would have some room here, you think?
No,
No, it's a real number. We
Yes.
need to stay with it. Okay.
it's a very tight number that I don't
Okay.
know if it's even gonna be enough, but I'm hoping.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, on 1302 tax collector. Item 5202, meetings and dues. That's, in the last 3 years, that's almost doubled. My question is, for half of the year, we spent like $370 of the 1,100 budgeted. Is that 1,100? Doesn't look like we ever used 1,100.
We're actually over in that by $50 right now, because the assistant tax collector has been going to certification.
Okay,
classes.
so we've already spent all of the 1,100 plus another 50?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 1303 assessment. Line item 5125. What is that, please?
That is the stipends paid to the members of the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Ah, right. I'd like to make a motion that we reduce that from 3,000 to 0.
Second that.
Okay, we're first and second, any discussion? Here now, we're gonna vote, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on 1401 elections and registrations, we knew that some of the estimates were, and increases were related to the early voting budgets. I didn't know whether, Eric, you've gotten some feedback on whether we met our targets, whether we exceeded them, or below what we thought it would be.
With the early voting, we just had the estimates were basically what they had said.
Okay.
In next year's election, how is that gonna get covered?
Yes,
So
right now there's no funding for town.
So we're funding it ourselves in the next, we have enough.
Yeah, well, what you see in the notes column, that's all the early voting costs that are included in that draft budget number. For instance, if you look at the top one, that's for the poll workers. Last year, we budgeted 23,000. This year, it's up to about 50, and that's due to the increase in the early voting. Next year, we'll have 7 days for the primary, if there's a primary, and 14 days for the November election, so that's why there's that increase.
Mr. Chairman, under 1501 town clerk, line 5412, indexing and recording. I understand the market is it's still robust, but it's slowed a bit from what it was a year or two ago. That 25,000, is there a chance, Eric, that we could make do with $1,000 or $2,000 less than that?
I don't think so, because it's a monthly fee for the most part, regardless of. how
A
many
volume,
record.
it's not related to volume?
A little of it is, but the bulk of it is for the monthly contract, the hosting fee.
Mr. Chairman,
Eric, that actually got adjusted up
Right.
to
Yeah.
27 with the
Yeah.
latest budget thing that you put out based on the recommendations from the clerk,
Right.
correct? That, and I think there was one other line item that
The
got adjusted.
advertising,
5204.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, got it.
and our contract's expired and renewing in September.
While we're in section 1501, Eric did make mention earlier about the longevity line item 5115 and the thought process of keeping that line item active.
Do you need a motion?
We would need a motion for that.
Motion to add $1 to line 5115 under town clerk's budget.
Second.
Okay, first and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I can go on, but if somebody else wants to do their list, I'm happy to take a break.
You got more, Gail, go ahead. You took about 3 of mine, so.
Okay.
Capital, so You're doing fine.
We think you're doing a great job back there.
Mr. Chairman, town, 1701 legal. What do we have coming up that's going to need that kind of,
Right now, we have a few big things going on with inland wetlands, so I don't know how much that's gonna cost us. And who knows what we're gonna need with possible, things related to the infrastructure project. I don't know if there will be much, but
wouldn't that be under the infrastructure package though? Wouldn't that be under
it
a
depends
different?
on what it is and if there's money there for it.
And the inlands wetlands, are those lawsuits or?
I don't know. I just know that there's a couple things that could be litigated, yes.
1801 maintenance of Town Hall 28 Main. Line 5234 building repairs. That's double what we had in during the last prior 3 budget cycles. We did overspend, it looks like, in 2023. Do we have some big projects for the building repairs that we need to be at 20 instead of 10 or 15?
I know we were switching over some of the things with the HVAC system. I don't know if Todd wants to talk about what he has in mind.
We have, some maintenance on the units, drain pan replacements, and tank, panel alarms. Had a couple episodes here where the pans overflowed, came down through the ceilings. So we're looking at pan replacements with the alarms in the pans. That's one of the big-
So you're gonna need all 20 of it, you think?
Yeah, based on what we had before, yeah.
Same thing for custodial supplies?
Yeah, that's factoring in the new preventive maintenance contracts.
The, Mr. Chairman, on 1803, maintenance of town building highway, line 5228, I had a note that you were expecting a decrease on that. Oh,
Yeah, we dropped it from 5,500 last year. to-
okay, 4,000, okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm at 2201 Emergency Services. I didn't jot down your notes concerning that.
5517 retention AA Young, reduce it by 15,000. That was my opinion.
Was that 5517 alpha?
Yeah.
Just,
5517 alpha, yes, sir. Yes,
so reducing just that one, not the combination?
correct.
That's 5517A
A, yes,
from 65 to 50.
no, from 92,303.
Oh, right, I see that. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to reduce 5517A from 92,303, reduce that by $15,000.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Please repeat the motion.
My motion is to, on 2201 emergency services, line item 5517A, to reduce the 92,303 selectmen's proposal by $15,000.
Thank you.
Rob, we're gonna have discussion on this and we're gonna vote on
Yeah,
this.
I can't participate in that.
I'm gonna need you to recuse yourself while we have discussion and vote on this particular item. Okay, so we have a first and second. Do we have any discussion on this?
I have a question on this. So we reduced that line item. Where's that leave him 8 months from now if he's over? Or does he come back to ask for that money, or is he telling his people not to respond, or I'm just, I guess my fear is we're gonna be dealing with this 6 months down the road, giving him money.
Sure, I
I
can.
don't know how that helps us
So-
if that's the case.
So he was short last time by $3,000 or something like that. I think it was $3,500. He had to come in and we funded that. My premise on this was just based on math. And it could be completely wrong, it could be right, it could be somewhere in that swag,
Right.
And I looked at it just from the standpoint of, Griswold, similar position, new members that are gonna be getting stipends, their number didn't move. This number moved and similar number of new members. Yeah, your calls are a little different. But that number moved by, almost $28,000. And I mean, I hope that they do have the volunteerism where you hit those numbers and he's got to come back and say, see, I told you so. But as I'm just kind of going through here and I'm saying, what just doesn't quite make sense and where do I think we can shave some dollars and cents from? And that was just kind of my
No, that makes
opinion on
sense.
that, but.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a similar reduction in my notes, and I had a slightly different take on it. It just seemed to me that, yes, we want to acknowledge the value of our volunteers. And so I think the banquets and service awards, et cetera, are important. But perhaps there can be an economy at least 1 year on how extensive the banquet expense is. And it just seemed to me that if we pulled back on that, then nobody's actual time, payment for their time would be impacted. It would just be some of the extras, because I know that Griswold, they do, they're a little bit more economical with their banquets. So maybe we can just be a little more conservative one year during this really, really difficult budget season.
Any other discussion? Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to reduce line item 5517A by $15,000. Hearing no more discussion, we're going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman, I have a question concerning 3204 waste disposal. Line 5425A, tipping fees. 60,000, is that a real number, or do we have some room to trim a couple of $1,000s off that?
I don't think we do, because the fees have been going up. We pay those fees to Casella. I think anybody that has Casella can see what's happening with their home bills. Same thing's happening here with us.
Okay. And we're definitely doing 5425E dumpster replacement?
We're hoping to.
Just a point. We had Casella, we changed to another one. Is there any options on this?
On this, I don't know
Well, I
if
don't-
there is. I'd have to refer to Todd.
I don't know if it can be changed this year, but I mean, there is another option that we took because they just increased them.
And so Scarrett, which is the regional group of 12 towns, Preston Incinerator, we're actually putting an RFP out very soon on typically disposal and recycling, to try to get a better number. That is a group of 12 towns to get leverage.
Or based on the cuts we have, where are we right now?
Now,
We are at a mill rate increase of 2.17 mils.
So how much have we cut so far? Dollars?
come on, Eric.
I haven't been keeping track of that.
That's okay.
I'll add it up.
Yeah, yeah. Under senior citizens, 4102. I know it's a much larger facility. The maintenance, 5236. Needed to know whether we had any room there.
No, that one, the preventive maintenance contracts for all their HVAC system alone is about $8,000. So I don't think there's much room to move there.
Are those preventative maintenance contracts, can they be covered by the grant from the state? Is that part of the build?
No, it's just preventive maintenance going forward after we took the building.
Line item, Mr. Chairman, 4103 contributions. Line item 5610, safe futures. I'd like to make a motion that we reduce that down to the 1,500 that has been our historical contribution.
Okay,
I'll second that.
we have a first and second, any discussion? We're gonna vote, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, that puts you at $208,001. No, actually, 207,999. I forgot the other one went up.
Now it's at 2.17 mil or 1.6.
7, I don't know if that 15. Nope, still at 2.17.
Thank you. 5301 Parks and Recreation. Mr. Chair, I know that you had a suggestion in this category. I didn't make a note of what that was.
Is that 5301? Jim, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, sorry, I'm late to the party. Yeah. So, yeah, so, you know, my thought process on this was going back a year ago. It was a part-time position, and the statement was made, if you make this a full-time position, we'll be doubling revenues, because these are the revenues that I bring in myself. If we had somebody else that was a full-time person, those revenues would double. And they clearly didn't. And when we had our presentation from Parks and Rec, we were told that he couldn't double the revenues. So my thought process was that those that voted in favor of it, and I don't know why anybody voted, but maybe dangling that carrot of I'm going to increase revenues. And that's why the vote went the way it did. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I would perhaps for consideration, look at reducing that back to a part-time position. I think it's about what, a $37,000 savings overall. So if there is a reduction, what about unemployment or any of that sort of thing, if we were to reduce that line item?
He would still be working here, so I don't know if he'd be eligible for
Okay,
the difference.
just didn't know if there was an offset there that we need to also consider.
Yeah, I don't believe so in that case.
So would that would impact 5105F and also 5145 and 5150, is that right?
Yes, I'm 5155.
At 5155. And your estimate would be that would save roughly $37,000
Correct.
to go to, like, is 20 hours part-time?
19 and a half, we would probably put him at.
Rob,
In the 19 and a half hours, we put them at how much for the year?
For a salary,
Yeah,
maybe 22,969.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we reduce that to a part-time position.
That motion.
Eric, are you good with that motion? Does it need to be more specific for?
I can give you the figures if you want for each of the line items.
Okay,
Okay, I'm gonna, if you'd be willing to amend and you'd be willing to amend your second, I'm gonna have you make the motion based on the figures he gives on what to reduce it to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll just be cleaner.
Absolutely.
The updated part-time assistant line item would be 22,969. The FICA would be 17,591. Health insurance would be 42,167. And the pension would be 9,335.
the travel isn't impacted, education and training isn't impacted.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Rob.
I would like to amend my motion to reduce line item 5105F to 22,969. Reduce line item 5145 health insurance to 42,167. Reduce line item 5150 FICA to 17591. And then line item 5155, the pension, down to 9335.
Okay,
And that's as a result of
As a
going,
result of reducing from full-time to part-time, the assistant recreation director for the youth center.
Matt, would you like to amend your?
Yes, I will second Rob's motion.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we're going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on 6101, planning and community development. And this was line item 5120I, professional services contractual. The 28,250 is substantially higher than prior years, but that's because, am I correct, Eric? That's because we're on a cycle with a big expense this year. It's a 10-year
They were
expense.
looking to update the GIS system. That's what the big expense was.
And we're required to do that periodically.
I think you're thinking of plan of conservation
Oh,
and development,
Okay,
but this is just to update our maps and databases.
okay. Same budget, 5202L, Economic Development Commission. That went from 3,000 last year to 5,000 this year. What is that increase?
They were just looking for more money, I believe, to reach out to more businesses and just trying to generate economic development.
Do they have somebody who's doing that? Do they have like a marketing plan?
I
Is
don't
it,
know, they have a commission, I don't know what they were planning. In the past, they've used it for like the signs, welcome to Griswold signs, things like that, but I don't know what they're planning on doing with it.
to date,
Planner had requested, he said they had wanted to increase their funding.
Tina, hate to put you on the spot. Can you speak to that increase at all?
Personally, I had hoped, and I'd like to see a more robust campaign in terms of reaching out. I did speak with Tom Giard several days ago, and he had indicated there was conversations that had been taking place that we have no knowledge of. So I'm going to be meeting with him to see, going forward, what are we looking at and how can we make it more robust and effective? So
are they looking at professionals to put together a marketing plan? So it's not a drop in the bucket, a new sign, and then we go home?
I would hope so, but until I talk with Tom, I don't know what their vision is going to be. I would encourage it, honestly.
Because to date, they've only spent $242 of the 3,000, so.
It's not very robust, but.
No,
fiscally conservative.
Would it be possible for you to talk to him and let us know during our next session?
I can.
Thank you.
I will, Mr. Chairman, I make a proposal to cut it back to 2,000, pending any kind of concrete planning on their end.
Okay, so that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second to reduce line item 5202L by 2,000. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we're going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And you hit the nail on the head. This is a work in progress. This is preliminary. This is just for us to present at the public hearing, and certainly there's opportunity for us to do more work on the budget in whichever direction it needs to go.
Mr. Chairman, 7101, emergency and contingency. Just had a question for the finance director regarding that 70,000. It looks like we haven't really spent anything so far this year.
Well, that's for budget transfers. We will be using it.
Okay. Do you think we have some room there?
We could possibly cut it back, just weary of anything comes up.
Would 10,000 be okay?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to cut back 7101, emergency and contingency, line 5850, from 70,000 to 60,000, with the reduction of 10,000.
Second.
If there's a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I got.
Okay, so where are we at, Eric?
Well, you have made $257,039 in cuts. And the current mill rate would be 2.12. $2.12 increase,
And how much is the mill worth?
about 916,000.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
you had suggested, Board of Ed making a cut of 400,
415.
415. Where, if we were to put that into effect, where would that put us at the mill rate?
If we were to reduce by another 415. $1.67 mil increase.
What would that increase have to be to get down to 1.5?
About another 156,000.
What's our fund balance again?
We're projected to be around 7.5 million at the end of the year. 18.76%.
And our range is what?
10 and 19.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. And perhaps Chief Holowati could help me out with this. We got a 75,000 for that new truck.
It's actually for the fire marshal.
Yeah, for the fire marshal's office, I'm sorry. Is it possible to utilize a used vehicle, with mileage, but instead of going brand new?
Possibly to be looked into. Finding one that's in any kind of decent shape could be a problem.
Hmm,
Again, we're just gonna kick the can down the road.
Yeah,
A lot of kids getting kicked down the road.
Absolutely.
So I have a question though, to kind of piggyback on that. For vehicles like that, they go out to bid though for a specific package, like when you buy police cars, you're not buying a Crown Vic or whatever off of, it's not even a Crown Vic anymore, it's a Taurus or whatever it is they're driving now, but I'm dating myself. They're not going to Monaco Ford or something and buying it off the lot. They're ordering something that's got a police package, heavy duty suspension. So I mean, is it similar to like that type of a vehicle, or is that a vehicle that would just be purchased off the lot?
State bid type vehicle.
Yep.
We're looking at something that would be four-wheel drive due to the weather that we have here in Connecticut. And it's needed, there's a couple of things that have changed as we go down the road, and that is now we can no longer keep our turnout gear in the same compartment that you drive in. So that automatically takes all that dirty gear that we do a fire investigation with and it makes it go in the back of that vehicle. What we have right now with the Expedition is all that dirty gear is still inside the same cab that you're driving it in.
But when you're buying it, if you had to replace that with another like kind of vehicle, it doesn't have to meet any special, specs. It could just be a regular.
It just has to, it has to be it should be four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at is something like a utility body or a cap on it, something to protect the equipment that's inside.
Okay.
And you do wash your equipment, correct?
As soon as we get back, we have to.
Okay. No, I'm just saying, because you're saying you're transporting around with dirty equipment, dirty gear, but after the call, you're washing it, so you're not transporting around every day with dirty gear.
Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned your recommendation of a cut to the Board of Ed of 415. I'd probably like to see about 425, but perhaps we can go down the line and see what everybody's viewpoint is. I don't want to be making 5 motions and have them all fail.
Sure. Let's start down your end, Matt. Would you entertain a cut to the Board of Ed? And if so, where would you be comfortable at?
I would, and I also have a question
Okay,
to top off that. I know we talked about it in the past of discussion of where the board felt they wanted to be when we sent this budget forward. So I'm wondering, as we continue to cut and we're still looking at a large amount that we need to get to, I guess, is everybody still where they are? Because I feel like we're moving the bubble even lower. If we're somewhere at 400, let's just say, we're gonna be somewhere around that 1.67 mill rate. I know Gail stated maybe 1.5. I'm probably comfortable at 1.75. I know I was a little lower than that to begin with, but as I started going through this paperwork, and the notion of being sick, you know, the can being kicked down the road, I look at this capital account and everything that we keep cutting from this capital hurts, because next year's gonna hurt more. And we're doing an infrastructure now, we're gonna be paying for that next year. I'm sure most people don't realize. So I'm just, not that I wanna go with a big number, but I just don't know how low we should be taking this without it just hurting us next year. So, I mean, the amount that we still need, yeah, I think we have to go to the Board of Ed, is we just did some pretty good cuts that probably cut pretty deep for a lot of people, so I would be, looking at that. It would just be the amount. That 1.75 mil, I think I'm comfortable. I don't know if taxpayers will be, but I mean, what we're looking at and how difficult it is for the first year committee member. So yes, I would be, I'd like to be somewhere around that 1.75 mil rate. I don't know where that leaves us, but probably somewhere around that 400,000 mark, I'm assuming.
okay. So this is just preliminary draft. We'll go to, once we're all comfortable, whether we need to call it a night, whether we need to meet again, we'll go to public hearing. Public will be able to comment on this as it's presented. We'll take the opportunity to meet again, and it might be a meeting where we say we don't want to make any adjustments, or maybe we want to add something back to a line item or take something out of a different line item. We'll have that opportunity when we meet at that point. At that point, it'll then go to, selecting for town meeting, go to referendum, and then depending on what happens with the vote, we could be back here having to make some even tougher choices, so. Rob?
I'm with my colleague here. I'm with the 1.75. I mean, I've been at the 1.75 as a low point from the get-go, because I think, like you had said, going into this, we were already in the hole because of decisions that were made previously. And it's no surprise that things have increased because of inflation. I mean, people can say that inflation's reducing. However, it hasn't, because we haven't had, the economy hasn't seen a negative. The rate of inflation has slowed, perhaps, but inflation itself has not. So the cost of items continues to rise, and that's only going to be seen in our budget. And as it pertains to the Department of Ed, with the 415 plus them having to absorb the 132, that they would have to reduce their budget by $547,500. That is, I think that's more than can be expected out of that budget. Yes, I think they should share in that reduction, but as for a 415 on top of the 132 that they'll probably have to absorb for the Chromebooks, because I'm sure the Chromebooks are needed. I think that's a little too much, but I'm very comfortable at 175.
Tom, what are your thoughts on a reduction in Board of Ed?
Board had this meeting, originally it was in a 1.5 to 2 mil increase range, so I'm comfortable with the 1.75. I agreed with your 415 cut to the Board of Education, but since they would now have to absorb the Chromebooks, I'm leaning more towards a 315 cut.
Gary?
I think 175 is probably too much. I mean, that's too high for the taxpayer myself. I think closer to 1.5 is a better chance of it passing. Anything over 1 is a chance of it not passing. We'll be right back here doing that again. I know it's a high number for the Board of Education, but this is not a good year. And if we can't take anything out of fund balance, if we don't want to do that, we didn't have a lot of discussion about that, but we did it last year and we already ended up with an increase. So I agree it's a dicey thing to do. If we use maybe a little bit of it, a small amount may help. But I'm more comfortable with 1.5, and that's probably still a little high.
Okay, Mark?
No, it's a daunting prospect ahead of us going forward. Cutting the school budget is never something I'm in favor of, because I do think the school is the, an essential thing in this town. On the other hand, we're not in the world of wants. We're in the world of needs, and we have to do things that are necessary to get this town fiscally straightened out. And we do have a lot of overhang from the previous administrations, and that's going to have to be dealt with. To Gary's point, any type of increase is going to be tough to sell in this community at this time. So, we're going to have to be very diligent about going forward with assessing the cuts that we're going to have to make. And in the school budget, we're going to have to go through that with a fine-tooth comb and see what we can do if we can. Again, coming to this as a new person on the board, I'm not sure what our responsibilities are going forward after that assessment. But again, I think we need to be part of that process and to see where things settle out. I think if it can move some money in to offset some of the burden on the taxpayers, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. I think if it's done prudently with an idea that these are investments going forward, it could be helpful. So the actual number of the mill rate increase, 1.5, 1.7, it's probably reasonable. Is that going to be reasonable to the taxpayers? That's another question.
So with regard to my 415 number, that was not a hard number. I mean, obviously I came in with my opinion on where some other cuts should be. We've exceeded that in both of the other categories, general government and capital. When you also, take into account the savings that Eric spoke about at the beginning with I think it was the insurance or something with one of the new hires. I mean, that offsets that as well. My whole premise on trying to just throw these numbers together was to get us down to about that 1.75 area and use that as kind of your starting point. So that's kind of the basis. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion, and I understand that it might be voted down. But I also want to make certain that everybody on the board understands that our budget, when it goes for a vote, is a bifurcated budget. And what that means is that the Board of Ed budget can be approved and the general government can be knocked down. If in fact that happens, then any additional cuts that we didn't make would need to come out of just general government. We can't change the Board of Ed budget after it's been approved. And that piece sort of scares me, because if the taxpayers want us to knock off $0.25 and they also say we cut the Board of Ed budget by 300,000 and they approve it, then we have another problem, which is how much more can we take from general government? Do we completely obliterate the capital budget, which I don't think we should? Do we take a large chunk from our reserve balance, which is not something that's desirable, because the biggest budget that represents the lion's share of what goes to the taxpayers has already been approved by the voters. So that's the problem. If we are a little too easy on the Board of Ed budget this go round, and the taxpayers, the voters approve it, then we have a much bigger problem with having to put forth the general government down the road. And we know that the Board of Ed, there are a lot of proponents, the parents groups and all those other groups, they get out the vote. They do a good job. So we had several years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, budgets that got turned down 2 and 3 and 4 times. And we really don't want to go back to that. But I just want to say that if we don't look at something in the 415 range for the Board of Ed, we might regret it later if it gets approved. So my motion is to cut the Board of Ed budget by $415,000.
Second.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to reiterate, Mr. Chairman, that by doing that, you're not just cutting them by 415,000, you're actually cutting them by the additional 132,000.
Right.
So that is basically $550,000 cut
Right.
to that budget.
And what was the increase from last year to this year in the Board of Ed budget?
4.6, if I remember correctly.
For their dollar figure or percent?
$1,444,959.
Pardon me, 1 million?
$1,444,959 increase from last year, which is a 4.69% increase.
So to answer your question, yes, that's what my motion contemplates.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we're going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Right.
Abstentions? That motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make one final motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we take 300,000 from our reserve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. And the purpose would be to utilize 300,000
In order
to offset.
to bring it down to below 1.5. What would it be then, Eric?
That would be an increase of 1.34 mils.
Eric, I'm sorry, can I ask you what the increase was before the 300,000?
Yeah, let me take it out. I think it was 1.67. Yeah, 1.67 mils.
How much is needed to get down to 1.5?
About 156,000.
I'd like to amend my motion, Mr. Chairman. I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Withdraw your second. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we take 150,000 from reserve. One, 150,000.
26.57, a 1.5 increase.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Eric, another question.
Yes, sir.
Where's that gonna leave that balance after we pull 150,000 out of there?
It won't move the needle too much. Let's see.
And I'm not talking about the mill rate, I'm talking about,
Our,
fund
yeah, our
balance.
percentage of fund balance.
Yeah.
18.39 projected at the end of the year.
And that's with a 10% to 19% range.
Rob, go ahead.
And I would just like to ask, where do you say that this money's gonna go?
It,
Go towards the general budget, so that way we have to make that up again next year?
yep, that's right.
So kick the can down the road there?
Well, we're doing a bite-size improvements. Last year, it was, how much did we approve?
850, 250 for surplus and 600 for operating.
So now we're just at 150.
I think that's a poor decision. To put it towards, so that way we are already in a deficit for next year, even though it's a small amount, because what's gonna happen, if it gets voted down, that number will increase.
That is true. There's no magic pill for what we're doing tonight.
Oh,
There's
I
no
understand.
perfect
I
solution.
just, when you make the same decisions and expect a different outcome, that, I believe that's,
I mean, we are near the top of the fund balance, and we are gonna, what I think the purpose too is we have to try to make it palatable for the taxpayer to pass this, because if it doesn't pass, we'll be cutting another quarter to another half a mil at least, which would make it even worse.
so my question would be, why not bring it to the taxpayer? And see what their desire is, as opposed to, and then make those decisions, as opposed to making them now, and then if they accept it, we won't know if they would have accepted something a little bit higher.
And that's obviously an option. How much does a referendum cost the town to run?
Around 6,000, 7,000.
Even with this motion, it's not set in stone yet either. We still gotta go to the town.
Right.
And they're gonna have their piece.
Right.
So. It's not over.
Is there any other discussion? So the motion on the floor is to take 150,000 from our reserves to offset / balance next year's budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand so I can see. Opposed? Motion carries. Anybody else want to make any other cuts? Done? You
Yes,
good?
I would like to.
You would?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. I would like to make a motion that we adjust the pickup truck for the fire marshal from 75,000 down to 40,000.
Which budget is that, please?
That would be the fire marshal with
Capital.
capital. Yeah.
Can you give me a line item?
Uh,
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, 5725F.
Yep.
And what was your motion, Rob?
To bring it down to 40,000 from the 75,000.
Reduced by 30,000.
That would be a reduction of what, 35,000?
You bring it down to 40, you said?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I
40,000, yeah.
misheard you, sorry.
Yep.
All right, we have a first, do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
I have a question. The 40,000, will that cover a new truck or a used truck, or what will that cover, do you? Did you-
I'm thinking along the lines of a used as opposed to brand new for a pickup
Okay.
truck with four-wheel drive.
Okay,
And I say that because my son just bought a four-wheel drive pickup truck for 20,000 with
Okay.
110 miles on it, 110,000 on it. So 40,000 would be, I feel that we can get something in the 75,000 mile range and then still be able to put the lights and everything into it.
Any other discussion?
Questions, Chairman?
Go ahead.
I am wondering what, the town truck that was purchased last year cost us, the superintendent's vehicle. Does anybody know that rough number?
Yes.
I know it was that four-wheel drive, it was a Super Duty, no cap, but.
I can get that for you.
Just want to see if it's feasible number.
That the F-250, Tom?
Yeah, 350.
F-350?
Couple of 250s.
Do we buy that last year or this year?
We got it last year.
The one we bought last year was 47,000. That's all right.
That was a 350.
Yeah, we couldn't order a 250, they wouldn't take orders, so $1,700 more.
So for 1,500, which you don't need 350 or 250 for that, 1,500 you can- for a fire marshal's vehicle, four-wheel drive.
Yeah, 250 was 1,700 less than what Eric quoted.
Okay, so
was that new or used?
Wasn't available.
so 40,000 would be.
Any other discussion? Sorry, I forgot we had a motion. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we're gonna vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anybody else have anything that they would like to talk about or work on with this budget? Okay. So does anybody feel the need to meet again before we have hearing?
Unless something comes up.
Final.
Mr. Chairman, can we get the final number from Eric?
That'd be fantastic. Good idea.
For first.
Took 150, right, from surplus? Right now, we're at a 1.47 mil increase.
The 0.03 mils worth in dollars.
When we just cut 35,000, so somewhere around there.
Eric, do you have a total number that we just cut? That's everything,
Yeah.
dollar amount, please.
Real quick. You cut $702,039, and you took 150,000 out of surplus.
702.
702,039, and took 150 out of surplus.
I'd like to make a motion to put $30,000 back into the Board of Ed budget.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, first and second, any discussion? Okay, here now, we're gonna vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Anyone else? Anything else?
Which out back at a 1.5.
Does anyone feel the need, we're gonna cancel the 18th. Does anyone feel the need to meet back here on the 25th to continue to work on this before public hearing? Or is everybody comfortable or where we've landed, at least at this point?
I'm good.
Rob?
I'm not comfortable where we are, but I don't foresee any changes being made to affect that.
Tom?
No changes.
I'm good.
Gary?
Okay.
Mark?
Sure.
Okay, then Eric will cancel the 25th as well.
Good. And I'll update you guys on the dates when I get them finalized.
Okay. All right, moving on, item 6, any other business? Item 7, public forum, anyone wish to speak?
Lord Sorter, 67 Ashland Street. I just wanted to comment on the discussion, one of the later discussions that you had about the truck and decreasing from 75 to 40. From what I understand, I may want clarification from this or verification from this. State bid does not offer used vehicles. So if it was a new purchase of a 350 for 47,000 or whatever it was, and you cut it down to 40, hoping that you're gonna get a used vehicle for that, I don't know how much of a prudent decision that was. So that's my first comment for $7,000. My second comment is on roads, and that's just that I'm grateful that the cut was only 30 grand, but now in my new role in the borough, I can say with absolute certainty that 80% of the concerns that I get from residents are about roads and road conditions. So I think that that should be a priority.
Okay, thank you. Jim,
Yeah.
name and address.
James Barney, 735 Hopeville Road.
Thank you.
Number one, I think we need to take a very careful look at spending money to repair, especially our fire trucks, to repair trucks that are already 20 years old. I think that when you take a look at the lifespan that we're gonna get out of them, that may be a very short-sighted decision, and that we maybe should be buying new ones, but I think it needs to be analyzed a little bit more closely than I just did quickly on a piece of paper here tonight. Second thing is, I did a very quick calculation on a $250,000 assessed house. And I think the current mill rate is about 25, and we're adding 1.5% to that. So that's gonna that's gonna put an increase on that tax burden of $365 a year additional, which is a 5.84% increase. I think there's an awful lot of people in this town that can't afford that. Thirdly, the vehicle depreciation that you mentioned that the state is putting in, it seems to me like that's another way for them to pull a lot of money out, because is that a linear depreciation, or is that an exponential depreciation, or do you not know?
I don't know, I don't know if it's just a straight line 20-year, that's what I'm thinking it is.
And
but I
I'm
don't
thinking
know
that's
for
that's
100%.
gonna be another hurt on the taxpayers. Not me, because my car isn't worth anything. Okay. Fourth thing, one more after that. I believe Plainfield has hired an economic development person full-time to run their economic department. Maybe we need to consider that. And lastly, we dipped into the surplus fund again this year, not as badly as last year. I spoke about it last year. And I don't see that inflation is going to come down at all. If you look at our federal deficit, we're running $1 trillion every quarter in increased federal deficit this year over last year. That's destroying the value of the money. We're going to pay dearly for it. Thank you.
First Selectman Tina.
Hi, Tina Fall. Do you want my address or first
Yes, I
selectman? 60 Cook Hill Road. And it's, forget who's sitting 2 people over. I just want to say this about the roads. I'm going to agree with Lori, because I think the #1 complaint, the most phone calls that I receive in that office has to do with the condition of the roads. Okay, and second question, Gail, you wanted me to get back to the board on the economic development. What date are we looking at? Which next meeting would you
When is our
like
next meeting?
that?
Next meeting is probably the meeting immediately following the public hearing. So that would be on May 2nd.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Not bad at 60 Cook Hill Road. I appreciate, everybody's job here as a role in the Board of Finance. It's always a tough spot to be. The fund was needed, but yet make it affordable for the taxpayer. It's not an easy job. I've seen it for years. The next item is, we're talking about fire trucks with corrosion. As you know, we're spending more and more on public works vehicles for corrosion. And we're trying to wash them every storm at the end of the storm next day. I think it's seriously time to consider the wash bay that we've had in there for probably 15 years. The cost of that versus 2 fire trucks is going to pay for itself. I was in the fire department, you wash the truck, you soap it up, you wash it off, but you can't get underneath it. A wash bay you drive through, it's heated water, it washes the bottom, the sides, the top, everything. You have a better chance of longevity. So I know capital's tough, we're talking 2 lease purchases here coming up for fire trucks. I think our public works trucks are gonna get kicked down the road more. It's a losing battle. It's something we have to look at going forward, but, if we own it, it's a drive through, they could go once a week and run it through, during the winter months or twice a week, to try to stop and break down that corrosion factor.
What's that? What was the amount for that wash?
I don't know, what was the amount for that water plant, Jim?
We priced it back then, $175,000. I have got current prices, but we never seriously funded it.
Right.
And
Okay,
We have
Mark?
75,000 put away for it so far.
we currently do.
First off, I want to thank you guys, you're in a thankless job. It's a thankless job, okay? There's a lot of cuts you had to make, you made some tough decisions. Back to the corrosion, I have vehicles, the stuff they put on the road is not like the old stuff, it's not sand and salt, it's very corrosive, it is the way of the future. You need to do the undercarriage, and it's gonna add some longevity to vehicles. But back to, you guys made some tough decisions, it's a no-win deal. I thank you for as hard work as you did and much thought that you put into it. Tina and I and Rich did as much as we could on coming at you. And there's not a lot to cut, by the way, you know, when you start really looking at the numbers, because there's not a lot in there to cut. So I think we run pretty lean, you know, all the way around. So thank you for all the hard work you did.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, last item.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
All in favor? All right, we are adjourned.
So how much does that wash thing?
They said a number of years ago, it was 175,000. But I don't know today.